Welcome, friends. Welcome to another edition of Freeing the Body, Freeing the Soul. I'm your host, Dr. David, the Cutting Edge Doc, and here on Freeing the Body, Freeing the Soul, we do in-depth interviews with individuals that are doing cutting-edge work in the areas of healing or spirituality or social transformation. I'm very excited about today's show. My special guest is Monica Diaz Campbell.
Hello.
There she is, in her effervescent self. And she wanted me to know that she's not a scientist. And I said that that's totally okay with me. And I'm really looking forward to getting to know Monica better and to introducing her to my tribe as well. She is the wife of Jay Campbell, who I recently interviewed, who has become a mentor of mine in the area of health optimization, especially hormone optimization. And I got really inspired to get to know Monica better because I read a book recently where there was a chapter in the book where Monica and a doctor wrote that chapter. And I had a sense of her passion for wanting to empower women, especially, to be their best version of themselves. And for those of you who followed my work for a long time, you know that I've been a long-time champion of the importance of honoring feminine energy and of honoring the divine feminine. And I've been very critical of the imbalanced, overly patriarchal energies in our culture. And lately, I've also been very critical of sort of the wimpy guy thing that's happening. And as the divine feminine is being honored more and more and is creating more and more space, it's beautiful because now there's more space for the divine masculine to be showing up. And it's very exciting to see that happening. And so Monica wears many hats: wife, mother, realtor, writer, coach, speaker. And I'm looking forward to giving my tribe a chance to get to know Monica. So Monica, welcome to Freeing the Body, Freeing the Soul.
Thank you, Dr. David. And hi, tribe.
Okay. So, you know, it's too bad Monica doesn't have any energy. So that's too bad. So, darn it. So one of the things that's nice about Freeing the Body, Freeing the Soul is because we do in-depth interviews, there's plenty of time in the beginning of each show for you, Monica, to have a chance to tell your story and to go as far back as you want and to really emotionally connect with our viewers and listeners and also give them an empowering context for understanding who you are and how you got to where you are, so that when we talk later about your current work, it'll land in a really powerful way. So what I'm going to do in a minute is I'm going to turn the first part of the show pretty much over to you and just give you a chance to tell your story. And I reserve the right to interrupt if I have a burning question, but most of the time I'm just going to let you go and then we'll take it from there. So Monica, go ahead and take it away for a while.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. David. So I guess I'm not a huge person in stating age, but age does not scare me. I'm 46 years old. I'm a mother of 5 children, 3 biological, 2 bonus kids, my bonus girls. And I grew up in my mom's Mexican, my dad's white, and it was not the ideal childhood. I guess most people can say that they grew up in a dysfunctional family. Well, I can honestly say I grew up in a dysfunctional family. My mom was born and raised in Mexico, came here to the States in hopes and dreaming of marrying a white man because, you know, she wanted to have babies with light eyes. And not one of us, I actually got the lightest eyes and I have hazel eyes. So she had 4 kids. She had 4 kids within 3 years. And then when my little brother was 3 weeks old, my dad, he was a severe alcoholic and he left my mom. So my mom raised the 4 of us essentially on her own until I was in junior high school. when my dad would come back and forth, he was, very abusive, drunk. They would fight. We would hear him hit her. There's so much that went on in childhood from, between my brothers and sisters, between whatever went on with my mom and dad, and seeing how my mom worked from like 6 a.m. to like 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. So we were what you would call latchkey kids. And, during the time, as a little girl, I remember like thinking to myself, like, why does life have to be so hard? Why was I born into this? Like, there's all these questions that go on in your mind. And I had very, very, very low self-esteem, and I looked like a little boy. My mom would dress me like a boy. I wasn't the little girl that was feminine. I was more of a tomboy. So my hair was always cut really short. People would think I was a little boy. So I just kind of grew up with like in my own mind, like a weird identity. I wasn't really sure what my place was. And I remember when I went into high school, and this was after my dad got sober. And when my dad got sober, I don't know if you've ever been around alcoholics very much, but it's like they go through this period where this withdrawal period, and they're like very angry, like super, super angry. And I didn't like my dad because, first of all, because when he was an alcoholic and he did come around, he was just a jerk. And I didn't understand why my mom wanted to bring him back. None of us did. And so we all had our own issues as to why he was back, but they were back. And so we're in high school, and we're all trying to figure out how we're going to live together. My dad's angry because he doesn't drink anymore, and now he's having to provide for the family, and he's working all the time. But the good thing was my mom didn't have to work as much. So there was like this period of them getting to know each other and us getting to know my dad again. And then, after high school, I never had a boyfriend, never had anybody who really liked me in high school. I was very, very awkward. I would try out for sports, never made anything. And I guess you could say I was what most people would call a nerd. I was smart up until probably my junior year in high school, when I started to like party with my friends. And then once I graduated, I ended up meeting my first husband when I was 17. And then we ended up dating. That became my first boyfriend, who I ended up marrying and having 3 children with. And it was definitely a challenge, because one thing I've realized, even, with that relationship, is it's really difficult to be in a relationship when there's no self-worth. Like, I didn't know who I was. I had no self-worth. I used to pray, like, please God, let somebody love me, because I just want somebody to love me with all my flaws. I thought I was so imperfect that nobody could love me. And so when he paid attention to me, I immediately grabbed onto that, like, wow, I got to do whatever I can to keep this man, because he actually cares for me. And he wasn't the most productive person. He was what some would call lazy, but he was a lovable guy. So I liked that portion of it. So I thought I would just do everything I needed to do to make sure that relationship lasted. I had 3 beautiful kids through that relationship. We both, there's a lot of ups and downs through that. With each child, there came more struggles, and I worked a lot. I worked as a certified residential appraiser at the beginning of our relationship with my dad. My dad actually asked me to come on with him, and that was a challenge in itself, because I'm dealing with my dad, who has anger issues and totally impatient, and I'm working with him, and then I'm in this relationship with this man who doesn't really pull his weight. So, and then at one time I got my real estate license. I was working 3 jobs. I had 2 young kids. It was like, I just felt like life was just hitting me at all directions. And I'm thinking, what's going on? And so there's a lot of struggles in my 20s. And I had my last child when I was 31, my little girls. I had 2 boys and a girl. And soon after that, I started to realize a lot about not really wanting to be in that relationship. And I was looking for ways out, because I went into real estate full time when my little girl was almost 2. And it was really challenging to see these other people in my office that were working really hard for their families. And meanwhile, I had this man at home that never wanted to really work. And I would say, like, because his job was a truck driver, and it's called an owner-operator truck driver. And he would have to call in the night before to see if he had any work. Well, if he didn't have work, he just figured, it's my day off. I don't have to do anything. So meanwhile, I'm out hustling, knocking on doors, looking for people. I'd be working 7 days a week if I had to. And I'd ask him for help, and he'd be like, it's my day off. And so it got really bad. I mean, it was not the best relationship. I ended up cheating on him. You know, I've got to take full responsibility for my own issues. And then it just was like, it went just downhill. And so I finally, I kept attempting to leave the relationship and he wouldn't let me go. He kept saying that he didn't want his quality of life to change because, you know, we had created a certain quality of life because of how much I worked. And he liked that. He liked not having to work a lot. He liked not having to push or do anything and have a house and have these vehicles and have a decent life. And I remember, excuse me, this one time I was going to go to a Tony Robbins seminar because at the end of the relationship, I was doing a lot of self introspective work and reading and researching because I knew there was more to who I was. And I felt like I wasn't showing up as that person. I felt like I was continually doing everything for everybody else. Like when it came to my mom and my dad, I was always the one that got depended on. When it came to my kids, I was always the one that was depended on. When it came to my ex, I always did everything. You know, I did the bills. I made the money. I cooked. I cleaned. Like everything was on my shoulders. And so I started thinking, like, is this life? Like, I remember looking at myself in the mirror and going, is this how I want to live the rest of my life? Is this what I want for me and my kids? Like, do I want my kids looking at my relationship and thinking that this is okay? And I was like, no, I don't want this. And so I ended up telling him at that time, I wanted to go to a Tony Robbins seminar, and I guess I should backtrack a little bit. There was one time we ended up separating because he was a big pot smoker, and I ended up finding one of those things that, because he had to get tested for work, one of those things that you can urinate in and you can use someone else's urine for when you get tested. And when I found that back then, our little boy was probably like 5 or 6 and he was going to use his urine to get tested. And I was so pissed off. I was like, you know what? You're out. So after all those times, like that was when I cheated on him. There's all these different things that went on. And then he became born again Christian and I took him back because I thought, I don't want my kids to think I didn't ever give this everything to make it work. So I tried everything. You know, after that, I went to Bible school. I did all like Bible study. I did all these different things to see what I could to make it work. But it wasn't me. Like it wasn't me. And I felt, again, I was doing all these things for everybody else. I was everything. And I wanted to go like to Tony Robbins. I wanted to do all these different types of self-help seminars. And I remember when I asked him about Tony Robbins, he said, how can you do that? How can you do that and not give the glory to God? That's not right. And if you do that, then I think we should just end this marriage. And so I said, well, I signed up, so I guess we should end the marriage. And he didn't take me seriously. And so, you know, that happened. We were together for like 21 years. I ended up finally moving out. He didn't take me seriously. It was like 2.5 years of me being on my own. I went through a phase of like, I'm just going to have a good time. I went out and like partied a little bit and got a little crazy. And then I finally I settled down to a point where probably like 2 years into it, I said, you know what, I'm tired of this. You know, every time I wanted to come to an agreement with him about finalizing the divorce, he would never, ever sign anything. He would never, ever agree to anything. And so I just said, you know what? I was waiting for a finalized divorce before I started dating formally, and it's not happening. So I just decided, you know what? I'm going to work on myself. And when I get ready, I'm going to date. And so within 6 months, I stopped drinking because I had the worst luck with men. Like I ended up having this horrible trip to Miami. I ended up paying for the trip. It was absolutely horrible. And I had to fly back with the guy on the plane. And it was one of the worst experiences I had. I remember like, I just wanted to cry. Like, why does this keep happening to me? And I knew the only real part of the equation was me. So the only thing I could really work on was me. And so I said, enough. I'm not partying. I'm not drinking. I'm done with drinking. I'm done with partying. I'm going to be who I am truly, who I am, not because of any external influences, but me. I'm going to learn to love me, and I'm going to really work on me. And so I did for 6 months. I just worked on me. I dug deep. I went in and I just completely learned how to love and stand in my own power and just, and actually even too with real estate, I started connecting better with people. I started like, I had so many like fabulous moments with people because I was so in like this love space. I was just pure love. Like, I don't want to judge people. I want to accept people for who they are. I want to see how I can truly help. How can I contribute? How can I stand in my power while not judging others? And so during that time, like right at the end, like within 6 months, my girlfriend and I, we took the kids to Hawaii, and we were in Hawaii. And I remember I said, all right, Viv, let's do this. Let's just have fun. And because she was going through a divorce. And I said, let's just create our own mate. Let's just see what we can do. And what's your ideal mate? So let's just write out our characteristics. Let's see what that looks like. And then let's just envision that and let's just send it out to the universe and see what happens. And so we did this, and we wrote down our ideal qualities. And then I said, all right, let's crumble up. It's not our job. It's the universe's job. But now, who do we have to be in order to attract that person? Because it's just not about us. This is what I want, what I want, what I want. It's like, how do I got to show up in life to get this person into my life? And
can I interrupt for a minute?
Yeah.
So by that time, had you done a lot of, for lack of a better word, had you done a lot of shadow work yourself? Had you looked at your own codependent patterns? Had you looked at your own need to be the strong one, to be the rescuer, to be the one in charge? Had you looked at your attachment to attracting a weak man?
Yes.
Had you done that work by that time?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, within that time period, and all through that time, like, right, probably when I was like 33, 34, I mean, I'm telling you, Jay calls me like the self-help junkie, because like I just dug. I mean, I've read so much. I've gotten really big into meditation. I did so much, and even really cool stuff like my dad and I really learned how to connect more. I had some moments with my mom that, we were able to have like a really close relationship up until like the last couple years of her life.
I just wanted to bring that out because I didn't want the viewers or listeners to think that it's just a matter of imagining your ideal situation.
Right.
You also have to be at a vibratory point where you can match that and you can receive that.
Right.
And sounds like in your situation with the trauma that you had as a child, that required you to have a lot of courage and you had to really dig deep for a while.
Right. And it's interesting too, Dr. David, because like my sister, who's the oldest to this day, so she's going to be 48, and she to this day has never had a productive relationship because she still blames my dad for not being there. And she's never, ever, ever dealt with any of that stuff. And we've had, some really deep conversations about this. And it's like, she knows that, on a surface, yes, this is stuff that, she's got to deal with, but internally,
she hasn't been ready to do the work.
Yeah, she's not.
Okay. So that was the interruption. Go ahead and get back to your story. You were with your friend and you were imagining your ideal mate, and then you were asking who you need to be.
Right. And then, so this is what's really cool. So we said, I was on Match.com at the time that was going to expire like in a week. And we're like, okay, well, let's go on, there's an eHarmony. Let's go on eHarmony and let's see how it works on eHarmony. Well, we got back the next night to home, and I started going on eHarmony, and I'm going through everything and all the questions. It's like this huge long list of things that you have to do. And I only had like a few days left on Match, because the night that I went on Match, the next day was my subscription was over. And so I thought, okay, well, this part is done, so I'm going to go on Match. This is my last time. I'm just going to connect with as many people as I can. Like whatever man piques my interest, I'm going to send him a message. And so I am not kidding you, I probably sent 25 messages that night. And I ended up going to sleep. I woke up and Jay was the only one who responded. The only one. And it was funny because at that time on Match, I had gotten so many weird inquiries when I had like sexy pictures up that I ended up just keeping 2 pictures, which was a shirt, a picture with a turtleneck up to here, and then a picture with my face and my daughter's face. And that was it. That's all I had. So when I messaged Jay, just like, who is this chick? And why are you messaging me? But he reached back out, and we started connecting because I was going to be doing a bikini competition. And so one of the questions that I had asked for him, because he had mentioned that he had competed, was I had just reached out and was curious to see if he could give me any tips, because I was going to compete for the first time. And so he reached back out because he's like, I have no idea. I can't tell what you look like. I have no idea what kind of tips I can give you. And so we engaged in a conversation, and then he said, why don't we meet? Let's meet, and I'll pick you up. I'm like, oh, no, we're not. You're not picking me up. I don't know you. Let's meet somewhere. So we met in Pasadena, and it was so funny because the first time that we met, he sat down and he was like, all right, let me tell you about myself. Blah, 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 blah. And he spoke for like a half an hour. I'm not kidding you, a half an hour about his story and everything that happened to him, what his ex-wife did, how his kids were kidnapped, like everything. And I'm sitting there, I'm listening. I'm like, okay, And then when he was done, he's like, all right, tell me about you. And then I was like, okay. And so I spoke a little bit about myself, and it was probably maybe 10 minutes. And he was like, wow, you're happy. I said, yeah, I'm really happy. And he said, wow, do you want to go walk around? And I'm like, yeah, let's go walk around. And then we walked around Pasadena, and he kissed me at one point, which I didn't expect. And I was like, whoa. And then we had like this heart, when you kiss and you have like this heart to heart connection. Yeah. The heart, and it was one of the first times I've ever experienced this. And now I experience it quite often. Like you were saying, like you can sense energy and you're an empath. Like I felt his heart. Like I knew who he was. Like it wasn't like, I didn't have to even like question him. Like I knew like this dude has such a huge heart. He is such a big, like his heart was so like strong that it was so like soothing to me. And it just felt so good. And I was like, wow. And so all we would do is like, we would walk and then we'd stop at a corner and we would embrace. And it was like such a wonderful feeling to be heart to heart. And from that point on, so we've been married we've been together almost 6 years, and our relationship has gotten better and better and better. And at the beginning, it wasn't easy because he was not in the place to be in a relationship. And it's like I told you before, he probably broke up with me like 25 times because he just was not ready to be in a relationship, he thought, and now to me, we have the most amazing relationship. We can speak about everything. And it's so awesome because before this is what's cool. Like on my list had blue eyes. He has blue eyes. I wanted him to be a dad. He's a dad. I wanted him to be tall. He's tall. And I wanted him to be intelligent. Oh my God. Talk about intelligence level with Jay. And I wanted to have a man that I could be physically attracted to, but emotionally attracted and intellectually have like I call it like mindsets. Like you can actually have this great intellectual conversation and be so stimulated. It's amazing. And so here we are now.
So tell us about your work today in the world, and what in the work part of your life, what's lighting you up these days?
Good question. What is lighting me up these days? So life is just lighting me up. Like I love to connect with people. And I've learned so much with real estate and a lot of the work that I've done. I've learned, it's like in real estate, we sit down with so many different types of people and you hear their stories. And when you're in a real estate transaction with somebody, it's a very intimate transaction because you're dealing with a lot of different things and a lot of different moving pieces between, it could be a divorce situation. It could be an upgrade. It could be a downsize. It can be a death. And so I really learned, and when I got into a space of getting out of my needs, like this is not about my needs and, I want to close a deal type of thing. This is like, how can I truly show up and help this person? And when I've begun coming from that space and truly helping people, I started to connect with who they really are as opposed to like who they're showing up as. And many times it's like, I end up becoming a counselor for most of, the people that I work with. And then I've started like kind of incorporating that. And when Jay and I got together and we started doing, he's like smart when it comes to like the science part. And I guess you can say on my end, I'm more of like emotionally high intelligence. And so, you know, he was always really impressed with how I could really help people emotionally. And then even digging like with what he's doing on the science part, I started digging a little bit more in how we as physical human beings, how much of what happens in our life is how it's because we've created it through whatever reason. It could be like we have some issues that we haven't resolved as a child. And many of us we're basically children in adult bodies. And so we do things and we act and we deal with things based on how we did as a young child. And if you don't have some of those issues resolved, then they keep showing up in different ways. And I've realized so much of this, and even from like people who have sicknesses or disease or things that pop up, it's like there's these reoccurring things that are happening in their life that they're not dealing with. And some people will just hold things in, and then it manifests into like a tumor. And, you know, so different things, you know, it's really interesting to see how things show up and what people are unwilling to really look at so that they can truly, truly be healthy and whole.
Can you talk about, you know, the name of this podcast series is called Freeing the Body, Freeing the Soul. Mm-hmm. And it's my direct experience that life is a unity, and that the health of our body has a great impact on our ability to consistently connect with the center of our soul. Mm-hmm. It makes it much easier when we're physically healthy. Mm-hmm. And being connected to the center of our soul to a large extent can also empower our physical body. And could you talk about what your journey's been like in terms of, you talked about as a child, you felt awkward, tomboyish. Obviously now you really enjoy yourself as a woman. Can you talk about your journey of your relationship with your body, both from the point of view psychologically, but also just physically? Like, what have you done diet-wise, exercise, lifestyle-wise, hormonal-wise? What are you doing to empower your body, and how has your relationship to your body evolved over time?
I love it. When I was a kid, I was really, really, really thin, to the point where, and I told you most people thought I was a little boy because my hair was always really, really short. And I was very active as a young child. I loved to play the sports with boys. I loved to play football. I climbed trees like crazy. I was just active. But I didn't love my body. I would look at myself and my body, and I would just be disgusted because I thought I had so many things wrong with me. And I had hairy arms. I wasn't very, very, like, I didn't grow probably until I was a junior in high school. So I was always really, really small and petite. My mom's 5 feet tall and my dad's 6'1". And so I was always super petite. And I don't know, like, it was like one of those things. And I was super, super clumsy. I would like trip over my own 2 feet. And it was just like this, I'm telling you, like, growing up, I never knew why I was born into the body I was born into. I used to question it all the time. I almost thought I should have been a boy, because I just thought, God, you know, boys are so lucky. They don't have to care about the way they look. But, you know, girls, like, I would see all these, like, you know, cute little girls. And, you know, my sister was blonde hair, and in a Mexican family, because we were mostly around my mom's family, it was like, oh my God, this blonde child, it's like, she is so beautiful. And everyone used to always go, oh my God, Linda, you should be a model. And then they would just be like, hey, Monica, how you doing in school? I'm like, oh, I'm doing good, thanks. You know, so it was always kind of like, and I worked really hard in school. So it wasn't like grades came easy to me. I had to work really, really, really hard. And I have a really hard time retaining information. So I started to learn that if I really wanted to learn things, I had to be in movement for like my brain to really capture things. So I was moving all the time. And as I started to get a little bit older, and I didn't start my period until I was probably a sophomore. I was a sophomore in high school when I started my period. And my mom used to tell me that she thought that something was wrong with me, that, something's going on because I should have started my period by now. And so when I finally started, when I was a sophomore in high school, I finally started to develop a little bit. I was completely flat-chested all the way probably until I was a senior in high school. And I started to grow more and when I was a junior. So now I'm 5'5", and I started to look more like a woman, I guess you could say. When I was senior, like 18-ish, I started to look a little bit better. But even still, I wasn't comfortable with my body because I had lived that period of time with, not really caring. And I had a horrible diet, horrible. I would eat candy bars, Doritos. The Mexican food diet is not the best diet in the world. Refried beans, rice, tacos, horrible. But I wouldn't gain weight. I would not gain weight. And I finally ended up as you have, most women as they get older and have babies, you gain weight. And so I did. I gained weight with each child. I had my first one at 24. And then 3 years later, I had my second. And then when I was 31, I had my daughter. And with each child, I gained a little bit more weight. And it was a little bit harder to take off the weight. And even, sometimes now my belly's, I have an umbilical hernia from having my daughter, from pushing too hard. It's not the best stomach, but I work hard now. In my 20s, I started to really appreciate working out at the gym, and I started going to the gym. Had no idea what to do. I was one of those people that would go to the gym and look at people and say, "Ooh, I like the way that person looks, so I'm going to do what they're doing." And so I would copy what they did, and I would buy Shape magazines, and I would, I had zero idea. And right before I met Jay, because I was going to do the bikini competition, I hired a trainer, and I paid this trainer $750 a month because I wanted to do this bikini competition. And she was a ripoff. I drove an hour and a half. I would wake up at 4:30 in the morning to go meet at 7 o'clock in Long Beach from where I lived. And then I would have to drive back to take my kids to school. And so I'd work out there for an hour with these other girls that were prepping for bikini competitions. And I ended up getting in better shape because of some of the stuff that she taught me. But this is how crazy it was. The night before the bikini competition, she told me, well, you look a little bit better, but you need to fill out your butt. So you need to eat a burger and fries before the competition. That was the recommendation I got. And I was paying her $750 a month. I'm like, are you kidding me?
I was just going to ask you if you were improving your diet yet.
I was. When I started training with her, I started improving my diet. I started, let me see. So I never really ate a lot of red meat when I was pregnant with the kids. I would always eat like chicken and fish and veggies. So I watched what I ate better during those times, but I was not like really diligent. Like I'm a lot better now. And now with being on metformin, like metformin is awesome because I really don't crave some of the things that I once craved. It's like, it almost like just like, it like curbs your appetite. I can't eat as much as I once did.
Right.
When I was younger, I would eat like a whole large pizza all by myself. It was like, that was normal. I would just constantly be eating. But as you have kids.
It's amazing how when you get your insulin and glucose levels under control, how that affects your appetite, it affects your clarity of mind, so many things, your weight.
Yeah, it's awesome. No, it's totally awesome because I had to actually, because I was taking 500 milligrams in the morning and at night, I think it was. It's too much for me. I couldn't do it. And then I didn't want to eat. So
I was going to say that's a pretty high dose for a woman.
Yeah. Or was it, what's the one pill? Maybe it was 250. I forget.
Yeah.
I forget. Cause it was the whole pill, and I would take one whole pill in the morning and one whole pill at night. And I was having like, I didn't want to eat ever. And I'm like, I don't want to like waste away. So I started doing just half in the morning and half at night. And it's perfect. It's perfect for me. Half in the morning and half at night. And since I've been doing that, and then I have thyroid, it's like night and day between diet, between training. I mean, I work out with the best dude ever, which is my husband. And I know how to train properly now. And it's awesome because like, it's okay if I'm a little bit awkward and I don't have to compete with anybody, because when I was, attempting to compete in sports or do all these different things, I would never do well. It was like this mental thing that I had because I would just like, I would get in my head and then I would screw up. But with this, it's like this own individual thing. You know, I can go
Right.
do weight training, I can do cardio, and it's like my own deal. It's my own gig. It's awesome. I can, you know, when I do weight training too, it's great because like we focus on muscle contraction. So it's not about, okay, let's lift. It's like, all right, like if I'm going like this, I'm like, okay, slowly hold it. Then
Right. You're staying conscious.
yeah. And as I'm doing it, it's like, I've learned this whole thing, like with I have like this connection, like you're talking about, like the body, the soul connection. Like I'm in full appreciation when I'm doing it, that I'm able to make these movements, that I have this body that I have now. Like even when I put on lotion, it's like, oh my God, I love my arms. Thank you so much for my arms and my skin. It's so beautiful. I just give appreciation to myself for where I am and who I am. And that I have the capacity to put lotion on my arms instead of like I remember when my mom was alive and she would look at her arms, she was like, I hate all these spots on my arms. And she would point out all her flaws. And for me, I've realized like we can all look at every single freaking imperfection that we have day and night. And it does nothing except to make our life miserable. And it actually creates like, to me, like impurities in our body. But when you can give your body like love and gratitude, oh, it feels so good. It feels so amazing. And I do that with even cardio, with weight training. Like as I'm doing it, I'm enjoying it. I'm like, in every single thing that we do, I'm sitting like, I'll sit there and close my eyes and I can feel my muscles working. I can feel them contracting. And it's just, oh, it feels like so amazing. It feels so good to be alive.
I have a couple of questions. Thank you. One is, at what point in your journey did you start to directly pay attention to your hormonal picture and start to test them and evaluate them and optimize your hormones?
Not until my early 40s, because I was with Jay. Honestly, if it wasn't for Jay, I wouldn't know anything that I know now. I had zero idea. The first thing I had even ever heard of it was I had a friend that said that she had gotten pellets and she had had a lot of pain from the pellets. And I had no idea why she would do that, but she had said her doctor recommended it. And I've never, ever, even when my mom was alive, like I remember her mentioning, you know, estrogen, that she didn't want to take estrogen. She was scared to take these hormonal things. So I never really paid much attention to it. But once Jay started educating me on these things and I started doing my own research, I was like, wow, I had zero idea until my early 40s.
And so then did you just work with Jay or did you also have a physician?
Oh no, a physician. No, absolutely. Yeah. Physician. But so it's like, I tell you, like, I'm not the scientist. Like he helps, I don't read. I don't always read my stuff. I'm like, I ask him for advice. Like, what does this mean? And what do you think? Do you agree with this? And he's really good about helping me identify things. And most of the time, honestly, I really have nothing to even really be concerned about because my diet's really on point and training too. So I really don't have much yet.
Are you currently taking like low doses of testosterone at certain times in the month or?
Not right now. I was, but now my levels have been pretty good, but I was taking, like, I was doing the cream and then I broke out really bad from the cream, really bad. So I stopped. So I'll see what happens with my next test if they think I should need it. But the next time I do it, I want to do a shot because I can do, as a woman, I can do a shot, a very, very low dose.
Yes.
And I can do it that way, but not the cream. The cream makes me break out so bad.
Yeah, I understand. So from a medical point of view, if you're comfortable talking about it, are you taking anything now that requires a prescription besides metformin?
Thyroid.
Mm-hmm. You're taking the one that has all the different hormones, all the different thyroid hormones in it? The
Armour thyroid?
Yeah, or the equivalent, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, I feel really, really good. I feel like I have great energy. So we'll see what happens when I take my next test and see if it needs anything else, because we usually do it twice a year.
The other thing I was curious, well, two other things I was curious about, and then I want to give you a chance to talk about the new book. It seems like you and Jay are both very high energy, extroverted people. And a lot of times in marriages, there's one person who's more extroverted and the other one that's more introverted. But I mean, I'm just getting to know you guys, but just on first glance, it seems like you're both pretty much people, very extroverted people. And I would imagine that if that's true, I would imagine to balance that out, meditation would be important for you guys.
Yeah, and you're right to some degree. So it's interesting so in real estate, one of the main things, like I used to have this real estate coach, and I've learned that we can't really be ourselves per se, like all the time. Like you've got to be very versatile. And when you're dealing with a certain personality, you ask questions in a certain manner and you show up in a certain way so that you can help them feel more comfortable. And in doing so, and I was always taught, like I've always been really energetic per se, but I'd never really been a people person. I was more introverted. I really had a hard time talking to people before I got into real estate. I was really shy. And because of real estate, it helped bring me out more. But honestly, like if we're in a social situation, Jay's usually doing most of the talking. And I just kind of, I'm okay with being behind the scenes,
Yeah.
But meditation, meditation does help tremendously. Like I love meditating. I love being in nature. I love being reflective. And I love just, like the mindful moments where I can just be out in nature and completely just observe and appreciate.
So I just want to say to my tribe that's out there listening and watching that if Monica Diaz Campbell used to be really shy, that there is hope for all shy people.
Honestly, I couldn't even say my name. Like somebody would ask me my name, and I still remember this. I remember I would be walking with my mom, and I used to walk hunched back and look down because I didn't want anyone to look at me in my eyes. I thought if they looked at me in my eyes, then they would see who I really was, and I didn't want anyone to ask me a question. And my mom's like, "Hey, Monica, you're going to be hunchback by the time you get 30 years old. You need to stop that." And I'd be like, "But Mom." So I had to like keep practicing like how to stand up straight and how to walk like with confidence and how to be okay to like deal with people. I'm telling you, I had to do a lot of work. I was extremely shy and completely awkward.
The other question I wanted to ask you is I see on the bookshelf, I see the picture of Yogananda and I see the book by Joe Dispenza. And it just made me wonder whether you've had any particularly strong spiritual influences in this lifetime. Have you had what you would call a formal spiritual teacher, or have you just been influenced by a lot of different people, or what's been your spiritual walk like?
Good question. I never really completely thought about that. I was raised Catholic, and I did not like Catholicism at all. I thought that I always felt like it was very condemning. And then from that, I went to a lot of the Christian churches. And that again, too, was like, I remember going with my ex-husband and, it was always like, you're a sinner, you're going to go to hell and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like thinking to myself, like, geez, like, why do people want to come to this? I was like thinking to myself, and I remember going to Bible study groups and like, it's almost like people like celebrate being less than, like, oh, if this is what God wants for me.
Who can be the best at being the worst?
Yes. That's honestly like and I used to think to myself like, oh God. So like I've read a ton of books and I'm open to all types of teachings. I've like read the Tao, I've read, I like Wayne Dyer. I like all these different types, but I like it when, for me, I feel like God is within and we get led, like all of us get led to, to certain teachers, and that's the appropriate teacher at that time. But maybe you might end up meeting another teacher and that teacher's going to teach you something else. So I've always, and sometimes too, I'd go on an airplane too, and or on a trip and I'd be like, oh, okay, who am I going to meet today? Like, who can I learn something from today? and somebody would show up, and I would just start talking to them and ask them questions, and we'd have this great conversation. Like, wow, that's so awesome. That was my teacher right now. So,
but it doesn't sound like you've had a formal spiritual teacher in this life. No. Okay, so let's give you a chance to talk about I don't know how far away it is from publication, but the book that you and this doctor are writing, tell us about it.
So it's called Cracking the Fountain of Youth Code, and it is farther away. The doc is really, really busy with his schedule, and I've had a lot of different things going on too. Ultimately, what the goal of the book is to give a voice to women, and I'm going to be like the average woman type of thing with, more of the no scientific background, who's going to give her voice. And then you have the doc, who is the scientific portion of it and how to deal with some of these issues that pop up. But I'm more of like I said, like, I know that for me, so being a woman is a gift. In this lifetime, for me, it's a gift. And I think that many times women, it's a really challenging job, because we're always looking for like this external approval, like I'm enough. And we look externally between our kids, between our husbands, between our mates, between our parents, all these different things that go on. And my voice is, I want women to know, like, they are beautiful. Like, if you're beautiful and you're perfectly created, and it's okay to maneuver through this life and deal with these things and show up as your ideal version of yourself, and to deal with whatever emotional issues that you have, and not let them sit there and not let them fester into like this tumor or any of that. Because I know that every single one of us, male, female, whoever, like, we all have healing capabilities. We were all born to be natural healers. Like, our bodies are like, whenever we have a disease or something that happens, it's because our body's speaking to us. And so I want women to understand their bodies, and then to look at that as just this wonderful creation of, wow, like, it's awesome to be a woman, and to appreciate that. And so that's essentially like my portion of it. And
Okay.
I'll explain that correctly.
I get it. Give us the title again.
Cracking the Fountain of Youth Code.
Okay. I have another question about your marriage, and that is, it seems like you and your husband are both very high energy, passionate people, and you have Latin blood, and you're fiery, and I'm imagining that there must be some, I don't want to say fights like ill will fights, but there must be like some tension moments or some conflict moments. And I'm wondering if you have any tips for how to manage those moments in an intimate relationship where it's not feeling so good at that moment.
And yes, we do have moments. I can tell you that in the past probably year and a half, we've dramatically improved the way we deal with those. I've learned, honestly, how to allow myself to be more, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know why it's escaping me right now. It's not necessarily submissive, but I guess you can kind of say it is submissive, like where I allow to be more vulnerable. I allow myself to be more vulnerable, because it was challenging for me before, because I had to wear this role of, I was the one providing, I was the one doing all these different things. So I always had to be in control type of thing. And so when Jay and I got together, Jay's a very dominant man. And if I choose to be with a dominant, hi baby. Jay's walking in right now. Can you say hi?
I'm crashing your podcast for 1 second. What's up, Doc?
Special guest star. So, it's like, that was part of what I truly desired. I wanted to be with a strong man. And if that's what I truly want, then it's important for me to be able to know when to allow him to lead. And
I need you to speak up a little bit. When Jay came in, somehow the microphone got a little tweaked.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Okay. So I don't know, where should I start off from?
just, I guess you were saying that you wanted to be with a man's man, a strong man, and that kind of let you go into a new space as a woman.
Right. And in order to do that, like if I truly want that, I can't be sitting here and saying, no, I don't want you to do that. And no, I'm so mad. And blah, blah, blah. So like, if I get upset with him and I tell, like, I'll give you one example. Like the first time that he went to Vegas, there was this point in time where our daughter had gotten chickenpox, and we were supposed to all go to this trip to Vegas. His friend had flown down, and I started I was like thinking, I can't leave, the kids with the babysitter and not deal with all these issues right up hand. Like I could probably end up going a day or two later, but I can't go right now because I just can't do that. And so I said, look, you go with your friend, you go to Vegas, I'll meet you there in a couple of days, and then we'll go from there. But inside of me, I was upset because I'm thinking like, why do I have to stay behind? Why does it have to be me? And I started like thinking all these different things, and I started thinking, well, it's Vegas, and what happens in Vegas, that he's going to have 2 days without me, And so all these little stories started popping up in my head. And I wanted to like do what I normally did before, which was I get quiet and I don't say anything, but then I get upset because I'm holding it in. And then I ended up like kind of like being a little sad, and Jay sensed something, and he said, what's wrong? And I said, I'm going to be honest, I'm uncomfortable with you going ahead of me because it's Vegas, and I'm just sad that I'm staying behind, and I want to truly trust you, but I'm also a little scared, and it makes me a little sad. And that was hard for me because I wasn't accustomed to being completely open and vulnerable. And he's like, babe, I love you. I won't ever do anything to harm our relationship. I love you. And it felt so good to get that reassurance. It was such an awesome feeling that like, I just like sat there and I got a little teary. I didn't even think about it. I want to get a little teary eyed. It's like, wow, like it's so cool to be on that level with someone. And even if like he gets upset with something, and let's say he says something, and then I'll just say like, I don't think that's right. Those words, like sometimes Jay will say something, and even though like his intention is not to hurt me, it hurts me because the way he says it. And I said, babe, words are powerful. Even though in your mind, this is not a statement that you want to hurt me with, the words that you're saying it with are hurting me. And so just like, you don't have to say those words. And instead of just saying, you don't say that. It's all in the way that we say things and the way that we do things. It's like a completely different dance. It's a completely different dance.
I'm so glad that I asked that question, because the examples you gave are so real and so poignant, and they show the power of a woman being in her feminine power.
Right.
It takes a lot for a woman when she's feeling hurt to not attack and not run away.
Right.
But to be there. And if the man who loves her has the space to not defend, there's more of a chance that he will see that you are feeling hurt.
Right.
And because he loves you, he will respond to that. Right. But it takes a lot of courage, and it takes the right man. But you have a wonderful husband, and those 2 examples were great. And I think one of the things that takes so much courage for a woman to be that way is that there's no guarantees. I mean, the man could be an asshole.
Right.
The man could be unwilling to show up. Right. The man could be mean. The man could run away. So it takes so much courage to be that way. But I think being that way reveals the truth of things much faster. Like, if he's the right man for you, that becomes more obvious. If he's the wrong man for you, that becomes more obvious. And if you're with the wrong person, it's probably better to find that out sooner rather than later.
Right. And honestly, Dr. David, what I've realized as well is that so many times we come into relationships with these attachments, like you're saying, like if he's the right man or whatever it is. And so we feel like we have to like grasp onto these people like they're our only source of happiness. And this person is not the only source of happiness,
Right.
but if we don't stand in our own power, like many women right now, like they want to like claim the right to be like this strong, dominant person. And so they want to put their mate down in doing so, which that doesn't do anything for anybody. I mean, men are very simple creatures, and we're the difficult ones. We're the ones who, like I said, create stories in our mind. And then before you know it, the story evolves into something else. And then we have this whole picture of what's going on in our head without even relaying what's going on in our head. And sometimes it's just as simple as, babe, my mind wants to make up these stories. And I really honestly want to talk to you about it because I know most of it is made up. So can we sit down and have a discussion about this? Because it's really starting to bother me.
But to be able to be that way, you have to have a certain space between your sense of who you are and that part of your mind.
Right.
And that's the spiritual development.
Right.
That's having that awareness and that acceptance and that responsibility and that forgiveness and that gratitude and that commitment. It's that lack of space between pure being and that committee in the head.
Yeah.
If there's not that space, the person can't be trusted to show up in the way that you're talking about showing up. And that's why I talked about earlier when you started talking about your dream guy. Mm-hmm. That's why I wanted to interrupt, because I didn't want people to think that it's that simple. It's not as simple as just imagining your ideal guy. There's a lot of inner work that has to happen to let go of your false identities and your limiting beliefs and to work through your hurts and your pains in order to be free enough energetically and spiritually to be able to be available and match that ideal mate.
Right.
And, you may have been that way for so long, you may take that for granted, but I want to point it out to the viewers and listeners, because it's one thing to start spouting out everything the committee is saying in your head. Mm-hmm. It's another thing to have the space to say, honey, can I talk to you for a minute? I am having a really hard time just showing up and being present this morning because there are all these movies and voices in my head, and I keep fighting them, and I keep having these negative fantasies, and I'm noticing I'm withdrawing, or I notice I'm acting bitchy, and I really don't want to be that way. Can I tell you what is going on for me? Because I really want to be my best self, and I really want to connect with you. Most people aren't in the space to be that way and language things that way. And maybe that's something you coach people with, either formally or informally. Or maybe that's something that will be the product of someone really engaging your book or something. But I think that's a gift that you have. And sometimes if we've had a gift for a long time, we can almost take it for granted. And I just want to acknowledge you and say that difference between being the voice in your head and having space from the voice in your head, and you have another deeper place you can go, that can make the difference between a high quality of life and a low quality of life. That can make a difference between worldly success and worldly failures. That can make the difference between a healthy marriage and one that can't stand the stresses.
Right.
And so I think that is so important.
It is really important. And it's also really cool too, to be at a point where if I feel like all I want is a hug, like just hold me. Just ask him, babe, can you just hold me? I just want you to hold me. I just feel like right now I just want to be in your energy. Like, I just want you to hold me. And that sometimes, oh my God, like when he holds me, like to feel his energy is so amazing. So
that's another point that we didn't talk about, that if you have a few minutes, I think is a biggie. And that is that I think a lot of times both men and women confuse their desire and need for conscious touch with their desires and needs for more intense sexual contact.
Right.
And they both have their place. And if you don't have that distinction in your consciousness, you might not know what you want.
Right.
And you might not know what to ask for.
Right. Exactly. And that is so true, because to me, intimacy does not mean sex. Intimacy is so much more than just sex. Like, to connect with your partner on a level, like what I really love is, yes, Jay and I have a great, passionate sexual relationship. The great part about it is, like, that's not all that's there. It's like, we'll sit there and he'll hold me and we have these amazing conversations, and and sometimes it's just like the touch of his lips. It's like feeling him like just kiss me, or even just having him embrace me and hold me. And we have these conversations, or me just having my head on his chest, or rubbing his hands, or giving him a foot massage, and us having these discussions. Like, to me, that is intimacy. That is true intimacy, because we are revealing parts of ourselves and opening ourselves up far more than what sex does. Because yes, sex is a great part of it, but there's so much more to it. It's an amazing experience when you can open up to all aspects of it, not just that physical, sexual part of it.
And I think when you have all those other elements, I think sexuality itself can be very multidimensional.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we were having this conversation the other day, because we were saying how, like, at the beginning of our relationship, like, we had sex, like physical sex, a lot more. And whereas now we don't feel like we have to have sex all the time, but we're closer.
Yeah.
We understand each other more, and our relationship is stronger than it's ever been. And it's an amazing point of our relationship to be in that space where it's just great to be with one another and not feel like it just is sex. It's just, and then, but to fully appreciate him too. Like, I can look at him and it's just this awesome experience. And I see so much more of him, and I see so much more to appreciate, because we're far, not to say like we don't have sex at all, but we're just far beyond that. It's not just about having a sexual relationship. It really is an amazing experience.
And I think the things we're talking about, and having a language to get at the things we're talking about, and for people to feel like it's okay to talk about the things we're talking about. I think these things are so powerful. These things are so important. And I hope you include them in the book, because I think there's a lot of women that will read that book that you will, by example and by creating a space of possibility, will help to heal and empower many women. And I think an empowered, healed woman is such a blessing to their family, to their community, to the planet. And, I think if someone were to say to me, what was it like? Why did you want to interview Monica Diaz Campbell? And I would say, well, my intuition was that here's an empowered woman that is really enjoying surrendering to being an empowered woman. And she can lead by example, but also by her stories and her words. And so I think your commitment to loving yourself, to honoring yourself with a capital S, is a great contribution. And then the fact that you are not only being that for yourself, but that you are continually learning how to be that way in an intimate relationship with a strong man, and that you're learning how to be that way in business as a realtor, shows people that it is possible to have what you want in the world without having to dishonor your feminine base.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the world needs that right now.
Absolutely.
And I think women need that now. And I think it's also a major contribution to men. For when a man meets a woman who's in that space, I think it can bring out the best in the man too.
100%. 100%. Do you understand, Dr. David, how many women I know in the real estate realm that are alpha females? They call themselves alpha females, and they so want a strong man, but they have no idea how to acquiesce, or not that they don't have any idea, but they don't want to.
Can I tell you something I've noticed about the alpha real estate women?
Yes.
They drink a lot.
100%.
Because they're not right with their power center.
Mm-hmm.
They're not right with their third chakra. And I know exactly what you're talking about. And I can see in their body and I can see in their eyes. I can see the deep suffering.
Mm-hmm.
I can see the disowned self. I can see the price they're paying for what they think they need to be.
Exactly.
And it's not a pretty picture.
It's not.
And those women don't age very well.
No.
They get dried out. They get a lot of wrinkles.
Right.
And they get a hardness. They get a dryness. They get a bitterness that is not pretty, especially as they get on the other side of about 45.
Right. Yeah. And it's really sad because I see that in a lot of women now, because, you know, it's sad because women right now, a lot of women feel like they have to compete with men, and it's really not a competition. There's a reason why we have masculine and feminine energy, and it's okay to me for a man to be the leader. It's okay for that. It's okay for the man to show up and be stronger than the woman. There's nothing wrong with that. And I don't know why there's people out there attempting to fight to have the woman be like the man. We're not the same. We're not.
We don't have the time to really go down that rabbit hole.
Okay.
but that is a whole other show, and that is a very, very deep conversation about why that's happening. But one thing we can definitely say is we do know, I'm going to throw in a little science here, we do know that testosterone levels in men have reduced dramatically over the last 40 years. And that affects a man's manhood.
Exactly.
And so you're going to get two things. You're going to get more wimpy guys.
Right.
And you're going to get more guys that feel impotent, and so they act out in a violent way.
Mm.
And so neither of those are good, and neither of those create a safe space for a woman, and neither of those honor the woman, and neither of those provide the kind of steadfastness that a woman wants to feel in a man so that she can feel like she can be herself and still be safe.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right.
And so the whole attack on men, you know, Jay and I could talk for hours on this.
Right. Exactly.
But the whole multi-level attack on healthy masculinity is one of the most evil things that's going on right now on the planet. And as you were describing about these alpha women, it affects women. The lack of a good, strong man affects women tremendously.
100%. Absolutely. I see it. I see it day in and day out, even with what I do. Divorces, all these, it's crazy. It really is.
Well, Monica Diaz Campbell, it's been a joy to get to know you a little better. And it's really true. She used to be shy.
100%.
She used to look like a guy.
I did. I can show you pictures where I look like a boy. I still remember. I still remember waitresses saying, "And what would you like, little boy?" I'm like, "I'm not a boy."
Okay.
Thank
so
you,
is there
David.
Anything you'd like to say in closing? And also, I don't know if you're formally working with women these days one-on-one. Are you doing any of that?
I am, but I'm only working with like certain people that I have to like basically interview the person
Right.
and see if they're willing to work with me, because I have worked with women in the past and they're not willing to show up and they're not willing to do the work.
But
And
if someone feels really deeply drawn to
absolutely.
reach out to you, why don't you give out your contact information?
Okay, I'll give you, so we actually, Jay and I have a site called fabfitover40.com, and you can
Say that again slower.
fabfitover40.com, and it's Monica at fabfitover40.com.
And is there anything you'd like to say in closing for today's conversation?
You were born with a purpose. All of us were. And enjoy life and love fully, love yourself fully, because no one's promised tomorrow. No one is. So love fully now.
Thank you, Monica. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to watching another edition of Freeing the Body, Freeing the Soul. I'm your host, Dr. David, the Cutting Edge Doc. And here on Freeing the Body, Freeing the Soul, we do in-depth interviews with individuals that are doing cutting edge work in the areas of healing, spirituality, and social transformation. My very special guest today has been Monica Diaz Campbell. And we've all been blessed by her radiant sunshine. So all I can say is, Jay, you're a very lucky man. And
thank you.
With that, we'll close with love and peace. Mwah! Bye for now.
That was awesome.